This is Behind the Sabre, a student-run podcast that shows the real family at Benedictine College Preparatory.
Welcome back to Behind the Sabre. I'm your host, Miesko Schoenborn, and today we're here with
Xavier Lugo.
It's nice to be here with you today. How are you doing?
Doing well.
Good to hear. It's about the time of the year we're getting into next year's course selections and getting into new classes. I'm particularly interested in some APs, getting into some electives, but I'm looking at business class. I know you're in business. A couple other guys have recommended business. I want to, take that up in college and see what I can do with my life. But any words on the class and the teacher and any recommendations?
Yeah, I think business class is definitely a must-take as a student at Benedictine, especially senior year. Mr. Chester knows what he's doing. He's past the military. He was in business for, the past 30 years or so, traveled the world. And so he's taken all that now and put it into a class for us, ranging from, just simple terms and what stuff goes on in a business to then investing and now accounting. And at the end of the year, he said we're going to do some Shark Tank, trying to make our own businesses and proposals to people and outside that he knows that he's been bringing for us. So I think it's a great class, and I've learned a lot. So.
Yeah, and Mr. Chester's actually a BCP alumni. I'm not sure what year. And I also don't know if there was a business elective when the time he graduated, but, like you said, he's a successful man. He went to Benedictine, so he must have learned something. What do you think you have learned thus far from Benedictine, especially that business class?
I think the biggest thing that Benedictine has to offer is the personal skills that we gain. So, there's not people sitting on their phones in classes. They're not walking through the halls with their heads down. We're interacting with everybody around us, whether it's in class or through the hallways or teachers or, even the principal or, Mr. Grapes walking through the halls. We're interacting with everybody. So, you learn how to interact with kids and your peers all the way up to adults. So,
And you got some favorite lessons or key takeaways from business class that I know you've actually got your own business. So how have you incorporated what you've learned at Benedictine in class and then kind of translated that over to what you do in the real world outside?
So the biggest thing, the biggest takeaway from business class has to be organization and accounting skills. Obviously, just like everybody else, this is my first time, running a business and trying to do work on my own. So it's been tough trying to organize everything like that and figuring out how to manage my expenses. So that's been the hardest part. And then being able to talk to Mr. Chester one-on-one, but also taking away things from his class has helped me a lot and being able to run the business more smoothly.
Yeah. One thing my grandfather actually says, it's not about what you know, it's who you know. We go to an all-boys private institution. I know you're going to Hampton-Sydney. We'll get into that later. But how do you think the network here has kind of impacted what you do? And if you wouldn't mind telling us a little about what it is that you do in your business.
So I think to start with the first part of that question about the people at Benedictine, like I said earlier, the skills of being able to talk to people, especially adults, has helped me outside of school, whether it's alumni or people through work, talking to them and getting advice, being more comfortable interacting with those adults has helped me to then take that into my life and run with it, helping me run my business. And my business is, it's called Excel Hauling. And I do stuff like junk removal, whether it's just, taking couches and stuff from people's houses all the way to, I've done some demo jobs on sheds and concrete slabs and remove fences around people's yards to, give them a clean slate to grow out, grass or whatever it is. So kind of anything I can do with a truck and trailer is what it is.
Yeah, and that's actually one of several unique, jobs that you have. That's your own business, so you're operating all that. But you also worked at Orpax, and I remember you mentioned interacting with adults and how you've gained some benefits from Benedictine and how you can translate what you've learned into social interactions. I remember we hang out a lot. You told me about a year ago where you felt the point in time where you became more comfortable. You're at Orpax Hunting Preserve where you work and train dogs, and you told me that you enjoy speaking in front of adults and training and doing all these things and that. So if you wouldn't mind touching on what you've learned in business class and how you're going to utilize that in the future with your business and set you up for success.
Yeah, so like I said, business class, it's a lot of it is the business structure and accounting and how a business works. And then me putting that into my business now, I can, for the future, hopefully I can manage my business more efficiently. So, I'm not spending on things I shouldn't, and then when I am, I know I have the financial backing to balance that, and then all other things, whether it's buying equipment, maybe in the future buying more trailers, trucks, depending on how big I go. Not only having that class and, all the notes I have and all the packets that I've been given to look back on and help me with my business, I have Mr. Chester as a resource also, because he's done all sorts of things, including some hauling himself, where he knows, that type of business, and he can help me with things that I struggle with.
Yeah, we have all these, we go to Benedictine, got this huge network. We see all these alumni with all these fancy businesses and big accomplishments. What are your aspirations for your business, and where do you see yourself down the road?
That's a tough question because, say last summer, last fall, I'd say, I'm going to grow this as far as I can. This might be my future. Whether it's, CDL truck driving, hauling gravel, dirt, and then all the way to if it's, clearing out properties or, getting into building and construction, things like that. I had huge goals for the business, which I still do. But now I've kind of turned my focus almost. My father's in real estate. I know we'll talk about that later, but I've almost turned it into maybe it's going to be a stepping stone to get into the real estate world. And my goal to be an investor in real estate, maybe also the stock market as well. But I might use that to funnel into as my funds for getting into investing in real estate.
Yeah, and all these things you're talking about. Earlier you mentioned social interactions, dealing with customers, adults especially. And I remember we hang out a lot. I remember you mentioned a long time ago when you said you felt the moment where you were now comfortable and actually enjoyed, speaking, dealing with adults. How has that, or how important is that to what you will be doing? I know you just touched on that, but can you just elaborate on how it's going to be important?
Yeah, I think at this point in my life, I have goals for big success. And I think one thing that thus far has been a driving force for that is those, not only the connections, but my personal skills. So whether I was working at ORPACs or working with dogs, I'm always dealing with adults. I'm always, if they have questions, if they need something, if, my boss needs something done, she needs me to go talk to a customer to do something, I was forced to be uncomfortable and put in a position where I had no other choice but to interact with those adults and be a professional young man and also, build my character. And now, at this point, senior year, and have been working for 4+ years, like you said, I'm almost at a comfortable point to where I almost enjoy talking and working with adults more than, sometimes my peers. So yeah, that's kind of how it switches, just practice and being forced in uncomfortable positions to then now be comfortable.
You mentioned all these things and what it takes, getting out of your comfort zone, and that all plays into being a leader. Everyone has a leader. Most of us have role models. You mentioned your dad was in real estate. How do you see your dad? I'm guessing he's your role model. Is that true?
Yeah.
Definitely. So how do you see yourself, bridging into like your father's domain of real estate, and where do you see that?
So I've been able to talk with him because he's been in real estate. He was in home loans and banking, and now he's moved on to real estate in the past 3-4 years. And I think almost just watching him lead by example is helping me kind of see what I want to do. And the way he's, going out every day and doing this, and I can see himself enjoying himself a lot more too in this field versus what he was doing previously. But just seeing his example as a leader and the way he, every day, even if, he thinks that day sucks or he's struggling, whatever it is, he's going out and doing it and working. And now seeing him turn from, maybe struggling more in that business to now he's turning towards being very successful in that business, it's kind of giving me inspiration, but also the motivation to work along with him and learn from him.
Yeah, I agree, because I also see that, every day at tennis practice, your dad is one of the assistant tennis coaches, and I love being around him. He definitely knows everything about it. He's board of members at Hermitage. He's got all these different things, tennis coach. He's your role model?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's, I think, once again, the biggest thing that he's been able to do for me, he's my father, and that's what a father is supposed to do, is to be your role model. But one of the biggest things I've taken away is his leadership by example, and how every day he still keeps going and keeps pushing, and also his ability to he works a lot, but he also he plays pickleball and tennis. He's a tennis coach, But his ability to just, work hard and do so many things, but also be able to flip that switch and have fun, and whether it's going out to dinner and hanging out with us or playing sports with us or pushing me in my own life, he always has that drive to work hard and then put that same drive into us as well.
Yeah, we can't leave out your mom. I love your mom. She
No,
she does the same. You mentioned, like leadership and what he does for you, sacrifices. You're going to have to fill those shoes one day. So where do you see yourself in 10, 20, 30, 50 years down the road, and how are you going to implement what you've taken from such an important role model in your life, and how are you going to implement that into your family in the future?
Yeah, so I've seen through him that family is a big part of life, and I have true aspirations to be a father, to be a husband, but also to be successful in business as well. And through him, I want to be able to find that balance and use his judgment and his, knowledge over being, maybe where I want to be in 20 years, where he is now, using him as an asset and a resource as my father to guide me to be maybe half the man that he is. So.
Yeah. And are there any others? I love what you said about being half the man he is, but are there any others who've helped you along the way? Any other role models?
I'd say specifically at Benedictine, Mr. McCarthy, some of the boys know him, former theology teacher, helped out Benedictine a lot. He's in the business world and in the alumni network. He's helped me a lot with whether it's meeting people or getting jobs or just, he has many resources, and he's a resource himself. I mean, he's much more than that to me. But he's also been able to help me a lot and guide me in my business and like help me out with people. And if say I have a question about something or I have no clue what I'm doing, sometimes I'll go to him and be like, how'd you do it in your time, or do you know anybody that's in this field or something? And he always has an answer.
Yeah.
So he's been a big help through Benedictine for me.
Yeah, I love when you say he's always had an answer. How has he helped you in your faith? I know I love Mr. McCarthy. He's helped me in my faith especially. But have you seen that same result?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, if as one of the boys, if you've been out there, he's got a covenant agreement, and basically this agreement is not only with him, but it's also with the Lord, and it's to uphold your faith and to no matter where you go, no matter what you do in your life, to always return to the Lord, always pray, always go to Mass, always to keep those Christian Catholic values inside of you and put them forth into the world. And aside from that, he's also, as a former theology teacher, he's just got a lot of wisdom. And just like, some teachers like Mr. Duran, Mr. Williamson, Coach Yost, he's always one of those guys that you can go to, and he's got an answer regarding my faith or regarding real world situations, because he's lived a crazy life. They've always got answers, and he specifically always has some sort of answer, some sort of guidance to religious questions that I have. So he's been a big part of my faith here at Benedictine.
Definitely. And we're just going to shift gears, kind of, continuing on like education and bettering yourself. You're going to Hampton, Sydney, right?
Yes, sir.
Can you just tell us why that is and what was like a motivating factor for that?
Yeah, so before, I knew about Hampton, Sydney for a while. My parents actually went to Randolph-Macon, so kind of rivalry schools there. But I honestly wasn't set on college at all. I was thinking maybe trade or just go into business with myself, or just go throw myself into real estate, something like that. And I wasn't a big fan of college because part of me is like, why am I going to pay that price for just an education when I can take that money or take my drive and all my good qualities and work really, really hard in my life. And then I went to Hampton Sydney just, for a tour. I had a guy that I work with who went to Hampton Sydney and knows many people within the network. So they put me towards Hampton Sydney, got me connected with some people, and I toured the school, and it actually completely changed my view on college, at least at Hampton Sydney. They have a phenomenal business program, along with their alumni network, similar to Benedictine. Yeah. But really what I see in the school is not only the alumni, but the business network is a huge part of it. And they've got a good program there with people not just within the school, but alumni that will come back to the school and may teach the students or help the students along a path that they've experienced in their life to current students, give them guidance. They have a place called the Ferguson Career Center, which is a place where you can go and they'll help you, whether it's just simple setting up your business like logos, designs, websites, things like that, to the structure of your business, and they have alumni that you can get in contact with that can help you out. So I think the biggest thing, besides the atmosphere there, education-wise, the business center and the alumni that can help you out is a big part of why I chose Hampton Sydney.
Great. I mean, you seem to know everything about it. You definitely must be excited to go there. How does that going to Hampton-Sydney align with your goals?
So, as you know, I have goals of either growing my business or, getting into real estate. And I also have another job, dog training, which we'll get into.
Yeah.
And so Hampton-Sydney being only an hour away from my house, I'm able to commute here and there on the weekends, or, if I want to come back and do work for a day, if I have early classes, I can come home and, go back the next day. It's very close. So in terms of my current life, I can still, keep what I have back home with my family, with my work, with my hobbies, and then also get a really good education. So I think Hampton-Sydney was just the perfect place for me.
Yep.
So I'm really excited.
You talked about dog training. You've been dog training for like 4 years, right?
Yep.
At Orpax. Is that also something you want to take up in your future? Now you do XL hauling, dog training as well?
Yeah, so I started summer right before my freshman year. I was actually more of like, kind of a helper. So my boss, Neil, he's the professional dog trainer at Orpax. And so I was kind of put in place to help him set everything up, check in people with their dogs, help him organize. I wasn't necessarily, a trainer or into the bird dog world yet, until I slowly started to watch classes, and I almost felt like a participant as well, learning all these things and being very interested. And then slowly, I started working with some dogs, whether it was his dogs or clients, helping out. I was figuring some things out. And then I was previously into hunting, so that fall I decided on a dog. I wanted to get a dog. His name Diesel.
Yeah.
And so I got a dog, and then it just kind of snowballed from there. I kept working with dogs at Orpax, and then I had my own dog, which I could work with every day at home, and not only make him better, but I was also training myself at the same time, almost teaching myself those skills, and then I can bring him into work. And now being here 4 years, I've been able to, Diesel is a dog. He's a flusher versus we usually hunt with pointers in the field. So I kind of have that expertise more on the flushing dogs and the retrieving dogs in the duck hunting world and stuff. So I've been able to take those skills that I've learned in training him and add that aspect of training dogs to the method at Orpax. So now we're really specializing in retriever dog training, and then also those upland dogs. Which we do all dogs, but
Yeah.
I can specialize in retrievers.
Yeah. So for those people who don't know what Orpax is, what are you talking about?
So Orpax, unfortunately, it's no longer Orpax, but Orpax Hunting Preserve is in Goochland. It's a 700-acre preserve. I think we have 12 to 14 fields, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, it's a place where people can either come upland hunt for pheasant, chukar, or quail with their own dogs, or they can get a guide. But it was rated #1 hunting preserve in Virginia. So
Yeah, sweet. I love hunting. I know you love hunting. You're probably better than me. You go out all the time. You're in the. Unfortunately, I'm not in the Benedictine Hunting Conservation Club, but I know you are. How do you like that program?
I think it's one of the best additions to Benedictine in the past few years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's for those that don't know, we do hunting trips, fishing trips. We've done some camping style and fishing trips. We've done everything thus far. I mean, there's still some boxes to check off, but for me, it's been everything I've ever wanted or could ask for, and a lot of other people. And I think the biggest asset that it has for Benedictine is those kids that want to hunt, want to fish, but don't have the resources at home. They can come to Benedictine and join this club, and they have all the resources they could ask for, and learning how to hunt and fish. So.
Yeah, that's great. How do you think that doing all these extracurricular activities like hunting and fishing with the guys, how does that extend the brotherhood of Benedictine?
So when we go on these trips, sometimes there's a group of, it could be 5 or 6 of us, sometimes it could be 10, 12, 20 of us. And we get to interact with not only the freshmen every day, but then in this hunt club, we can interact with them in a more personal, friendly way. And then also there's sophomores and some juniors. So there's kids from all ages at the school, and there's also different teachers, and sometimes alumni will be out there, and so you meet so many different people from the school, and you get to form those bonds with kids that you necessarily wouldn't see in class or walking through the hallways. So it's a great way to bring the core together in another way.
Yep. So you got all these things going on. You're in the hunt club. You're a sponsoring officer. You got all these jobs outside of school. I know you got a girlfriend. How do you manage all these things and still continue to live a traditional high school experience?
Yeah, it's gotten tough, honestly, over the years. I've added on more and more as the years have gone on, and honestly, school, will get harder and harder. So I'm making it more packed. But honestly, time management is a big part. But also, I have my passions, so it's easier for me to be willing to, get those things done that I want to get done in order so I can, hang out with my girlfriend, or, I can go hunting or things like that. So it's almost time management is that big piece, but also, do things that I'm passionate about. And I don't, if there's something I don't want to do, or, something that might not necessarily be my type of thing, I'm not going to go into it necessarily. I'm going to, stick to who I am as a person and stick to what I like, and balance those things in my life. It ends up being a lot easier for me.
Yeah, and balancing, do you think that you, on those smaller scale balancing, the high school experience will translate into balancing business expenses, running and operating the whole thing? Like how does that going to translate later on in life?
Yeah, so having a lot of things going on in my life now, I feel like I can only get more busy, but at the same time, I'm almost in a way unintentionally forcing myself to mature in a way, trying to make myself more disciplined, make myself, time manage better. So it's almost a hope that in the future, all these things and all the aspects of my life here at Benedictine will translate into, college, and then after college, married life, father, work, all these things. I think what I have going on now isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think it's going to set me up for success. So
yeah. So we just talked about your business life and your busy life, right? Let's get into like your high school life, your personal life. What has been your favorite memory throughout high school?
That's a loaded question. We've got all sorts of shenanigans we do. Some cannot be mentioned. Others, just simple things. Whether it's like freshman year, Joe Covington playing the bagpipes during a fire drill, the whole corps is rushing outside, and Joe, which is my inspiration to play bagpipes, actually. He comes outside and is playing the bagpipes, and everybody's dancing, jumping around, and all the teachers and faculty are yelling at us to be quiet, listen, fall into our spots so we can get accountability. And then just in general, like in the halls, and the way we can interact with teachers is fun. We joke around. It's nothing. It's a serious school, and there's times that we have to be serious. But at the same time, every day at Benedictine is another day, and there's something new is going to happen. There's something that's going to be funny, something entertaining. There's always something going on, and so that I think that plays back into the personal life at Benedictine, and how we all know each other. We all interact with each other, and that makes our high school experience so much more fun. So it's just there's too many things to talk about. But
even outside of Benedictine, like you and I became really good friends my freshman year, your sophomore year. We're hanging out at Herm, riding the golf cart around, blasting music in the middle of the night, just doing all these fun things, and that relationship is definitely like carried through Benedictine. But what are some of your outside memories, like favorite memories, just in general in your past 4 years?
I think it kind of all ties back into diesel and hunting, and I think the biggest thing that I've grown and gained over the past 4 years is diesel and my hunting ability, and the people I've met, and how I've turned into as a person. Not necessarily what I've done or what I'm doing now, but who I am, as a person, my characteristics, I think, is my biggest takeaway from my high school experience.
Well, about hunting, I remember one time we were going out to my hunt club, Deer Lodge Hunt Club, and it was like just after it rained, and we got there. It's like 40 minutes from our house, and I think you drove separately. We got there and then realized it was flooded. There was like 6 feet of water. The trees were up, and the john boat tied on the rope was like head level.
Yeah.
And we realized we forgot the oars for the john boat. So we had to paddle out to the duck blind using like the butts of the shotguns, doing all these crazy things.
Yeah.
And that's one of my favorite memories, especially with you in the past years of Benedictine. But hunting has always been a great time. So,
for sure.
Anything else you want to touch on? Any shout outs?
I think-
special people?
I'd say one memory that is sticking in my head is one time. This may have been last summer. It was raining for like a few days straight, and you came over, and the golf course had like a thin layer of water, and we got a rope and tied it to the golf court, and we pulled each other on the skimboards across the golf course, which we probably shouldn't do.
Antonio was driving.
Maybe not talk about, but that was one of like I think honestly the thing is we can go out and we always find something to do, something fun to do. I think that probably goes for everybody at Benedictine. Honestly, is we know how to find fun things to do and how to have our wild moments, but also be disciplined, be smart, be respectful. So.
And that's it, man. Today, we were here with Xavi Lugo. Pleasure having you.
Pleasure.
You can watch this on our YouTube channel, also on our Instagram Reels Shorts. Thanks for coming.